We are inside of a week before the start of NFL training camp. The Bears reporting to Halas Hall in Lake Forest on July 27th. I'm Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune. That's Dionne Miller of ABC7. Hard to believe that summer is coming to a rapid close, as it always does for us in the NFL business. Your thoughts, Dionne?
I cannot believe this is the last week without football, and hopefully football the way it was meant to be played, right? With fans in the stands and getting back to normal in-person interviews and getting fans closer to the team that they love. And obviously the appetite for Bears fans right now is huge. So I'm really excited about what next week will bring. And then from there, all the stories that will follow.
I was saying the other day that I'm both totally ready for training camp to begin and nowhere near ready for training camp to begin, because I really got my grips in summer. Been playing a lot of golf, coaching a lot of youth baseball, getting away. It's been really good to decompress. You want football, but you're like, just another week maybe. But here it comes. It's coming
fast, right? That was fast. How the fact that we're towards the end of July already is really kind of mind-boggling to me. But bring it on. Let's do it. We've talked. Let's look forward to training camp.
So last year's training camp doesn't really count because it was a pandemic year and it was abbreviated and we were all in masks and everything was a little bit wild. So this will really be the first full training camp that the Bears have outside of Bourbonnais for a long, long time. There's parts of Bourbonnais I'm going to miss. There's parts of Bourbonnais I'm not going to miss. And so we're going to be up at Halas Hall in Lake Forest for the better part of 6-7 weeks leading from report date on July 27th to the season opener in mid-September. And so there's a lot to get to. We have done homework assignments without telling each other the answers to our homework assignments of the things that we are looking forward to seeing at this Chicago Bears training camp. Without further ado, give me number one on your list.
There are no wrong answers, right?
No wrong answers.
All right. Well, obviously, I'm starting with quarterback. I hope that's not one of yours, too. I'm sure that we'll have similar, but I'm starting with quarterback, not just Justin Fields. I'm also worried about Andy Dalton and seeing how he progresses in getting into the system and being that leader that they need for however many weeks until it's time for Justin. I want to see that dynamic between the two of them. I want to see the same business-like approach that we saw from Justin Fields in OTAs. I want to see that he is there to do a job and see that there has been progress, even if it's just in his cadence, in his ability to feel confident stepping up there in drills, whatever. I want to see a tangible growth and difference behind center when it comes to both of them as they head into the season.
Yeah, I think you're right there. It's important for us not to overlook Andy amid all the Justin Fields mania, because I think there's a sense inside the building at Halas Hall that not only does Andy's presence here provide a longer on-ramp for Justin to get ready to play starting quarterback for a decade or longer for this franchise, but that the Bears truly believe that they can win a lot of games with Andy Dalton. There's outside skeptics about that say Andy Dalton is just another version of what they had with Nick Foles last year. But you look at when Andy Dalton's been most successful in his career and when he's been comfortable within offenses, he can be successful. And the thought, I think, amongst the coaching staff right now is that he's a guy that's not going to get you beat. He's going to be a guy that, when it relates to Justin Fields, is a guy who does everything the right way. So it's a good example for Justin to follow, to learn the routine that you have to set up as a starting quarterback in the NFL, how to watch film, how to learn from bad losses, how to learn from good wins. There's a lot that Andy can provide to this 2021 season that very few of us are going to be focused on, right? Because it's going to be all about Justin Fields. So I think it is important for us in these early stretches of training camp to keep tabs on Andy. Also with Justin, obviously, that's where all eyes are going to be for this stretch. Justin's going to play a ton in the 3 preseason games that the Bears have, and I think every one of those is going to be sort of a benchmark. Is he comfortable, right? We talk about comfortable all the time. I think the one thing that folks at Halas Hall are most excited about coming out of the spring, presence. That's the word you hear a lot from folks up there, is that Justin just has this presence. No offense to any of his predecessors in that position, but sometimes you just need a guy who has that swagger and that self-belief and steps in the huddle and makes everyone else feel like, oh yeah, we're scoring on this drive. Perhaps we're scoring on this play. And so that presence there to be a leader, to be confident, to get everybody energized, I think it's going to be fun to chronicle throughout a training camp that otherwise is going to be, like most training camps, monotonous and boring and grindy, right?
Yes, exactly that. And I will tell you, being a Buckeye gives you that kind of confidence. So I'm all in on Justin Fields. But the other thing that I wanted to point out was just with Andy Dalton and how different it is from, we've harkened back to Mike Glennon so much, but to hear Andy say, I knew what I was getting into. None of this is a surprise to me. And I think that that's his approach to this season is that mentality that they need when you're bringing in a guy like Justin Fields. So yes, you're right. We need to keep looking at Dalton too, because that dynamic is going to be so huge for the way the season starts.
It'd be fun to watch. So number one on my list is very contrary to what we just talked about, and it's turnovers. It's turnovers. I want to see the defense creating turnovers in these practices. Sean Desai, the new coordinator, is widely praised by all the players on that side of the ball as being a guy who understands how to tap into his playmakers' greatest strengths and turn them loose to make plays. Okay, let's see it right out of the gates. We had a very limited sample size when the starters for defense finally showed up in minicamp in June, and there were a couple plays in those practice settings in June where you said, wow, this looks like that Vic Fangio-led defense of 2018, where they're flying around, they're very confident in each other, they're very confident in the cohesion of the unit, and they're taking the ball away, right? They're getting interceptions. Obviously, you're not going to see sack fumbles in training camp because you're not allowed to be anywhere near the quarterback or pass rusher. But you want to see, perhaps defensive linemen and outside linebackers getting hands on the balls, tipping them up. Now here comes a linebacker or a defensive back to pick it off. There's going to be opportunities in camp for plays to be made on defense. And I think this defense is really the engine of this 2021 season. We're talking all about the quarterback position and the transition whenever it occurs from Dalton to Fields. Well, this defense can turn this team into a playoff team again if they play at the level they're capable of. Sean Desai at the controls is going to be fascinating to watch as a first-time coordinator, but there it is, the turnovers. So I'm expecting turnovers, which is going to make some people very upset, but for me, it'll be a bright sign that the defense is back.
And that leads, it's like we've done this before, leads right into my second thing, which was the defense. That's what I was curious about because of the fact that so many of the starters didn't come to OTAs this year, and that transition with Sean Desai and what that's going to look like and how this defense will get that fight back, get that hunger back, get that swagger back that they had under Vic Fangio. Will it be the same under Sean Desai? And I'm anxious to see how that all comes together and how they work with him and to see him kind of take control on the field. I really want to see that dynamic happen quickly in training camp because the guys said they love him. Everybody loves him. He's the right guy for the job. Okay, I want to see you respond that way in your play on the field. And this is a defense that, of course, got a year older, and I feel like they have a lot to prove. And I want to see how they come out of the gate, obviously pacing themselves. They're all veterans, they know. But I want to see what that looks like in training camp because I think that will be that foundation for them to move back into that realm of the defense that they are capable of being.
We've talked about it before. Your stars have to be stars, right? Khalil Mack has to get to double digits in sacks this season. Eddie Jackson has to have at least one interception.
Yes.
Akeem Hicks has to show everybody that he's not at the tail end of his career and on the way out, right? He's got to be a dominating, game-wrecking force more weeks than he's not. And so you talk there, and I haven't even mentioned Roquan Smith, who's probably the best player with the brightest future of anybody on this defense right now. And so you say, boy, 4 names right there. Those are playmaking talents right there. Jalen Johnson, add him to that mix. Tayshaun Gibson, a veteran who can do some things in the back end. You don't know who your second pass rusher is going to be if Robert Quinn can't stay healthy or be consistent, but you've got pieces. And so Sean Desai should be very excited about the pieces he has. He's a first-time coordinator, but obviously he's been in that building forever. So he knows these guys inside and out. He knows their skills. He knows their strengths. He knows their weaknesses. He knows how to move them around. I'm really, really bullish on what Sean Desai can do for this defense, to your point. Now the players have to go out and back up all of the optimism, all the praise, all of the belief that's sort of percolating inside Halas Hall with plays.
Totally. Did you see Akeem on Instagram dunked the basketball and said, I haven't lost a step? 31. He's 31. So hopefully he brings that same intensity to the trenches where they need it. They need him to be a monster because we've seen in the past how much that sets up everything else for the defense. So I agree with you. This is a point where our attention needs to be when we start camp.
Akeem was one of those veterans that we didn't get a chance to talk to throughout this offseason. So the first chance we get to talk to him will be refreshing again. Number 2 on my list, another guy up front on defense, Eddie Goldman, right?
Yeah.
Eddie Goldman. Didn't see Eddie Goldman in 2020. He opted out of the 2020 season due to COVID-19 concerns with personal health-related issues there. Then he wasn't there at minicamp, and you said, okay, well, no defensive starters are here. At OTAs. You said no defensive starters are here at OTAs. No big deal. We'll give Eddie a pass there. Then he doesn't show up for the mandatory minicamp. Matt Nagy tells you it wasn't an excused absence, and you say, uh-oh, is Eddie still committed to playing football for the Chicago Bears? I can tell you, I've had conversations with people in the know. They say he will report to training camp.
Really?
He's eager to be back on the practice field. He's roaring to go. While his absence from minicamp was not excused, Eddie will be back there on Tuesday by all accounts, and that's promising for Bears defense with a guy that is an underrated piece up front that makes things happen. We talk about Roquan Smith. Roquan Smith and Danny Trevathan are both going to be better players if Eddie Goldman's up front holding double teams and making plays up there and freeing them up to be clean to make tackles.
Agreed. However, it has been a long time since that man has been on the football field. So what will that year plus away? What, December of 19? Is that the last time he was on the football field? And now he's going to come into camp and he's hungry to be on the field. What gives anyone the confidence that that's going to be something that he sticks with? I mean, who's to even say that he'll get into a couple of practices at camp and be like, you know what? Maybe I don't want to be here. I don't know. There's nothing from the last 18 months has shown me that Eddie Goldman is so all in with the Bears. And so I want to see that from him as well. I'll add that to 2A of my list because I do want to see that as well.
You're going to have 3 or 4 practices the first week and you're going to say, is Eddie in shape? Does Eddie look like he's engaged? Does Eddie look like he's ready to play? I have confidence that he will be, and he's such an important piece of this defense. You also have to remember that Jay Rodgers, who was his position coach from the day he came into the Bears organization, is gone. He's in LA now with the Chargers. Chris Rumph comes in. Chris Rumph has got to learn Eddie Goldman. He's got to learn his game a little bit. And he said back in the spring that hopefully for Eddie, this is like riding a bike. He said he's not going to be able to pop any wheelies right away, but hopefully very quickly we'll get him back to that stage where he can get on the bike and pop a few wheelies and get going. Obviously, that would be huge news for the Bears defense if you get Eddie Goldman playing to his peak potential. And listen, in 2019, he was an alternate for the Pro Bowl at a nose tackle position where you don't get a lot of recognition. So he's got it in him. Now it's up to him to come back and show everybody that, look, we're going to be watching injuries all throughout camp too, right? And are you in enough shape good enough shape to withstand the rigors of training camp and not have to miss 3-4 days with a soft tissue injury or whatever it may be? Big things to watch there in the first week with Eddie Goldman.
Mitch Trubisky also got a Pro Bowl nod, so let's not get crazy. Okay, number 3 on my list is actually the other side of the trenches, the offensive line. I'm very interested to see how this O-line comes together and the youth that they brought in and consistency up front. Again, we talk about it, but how different it will look with a confident quarterback behind them. And I'm really interested to see how that all comes together with the likes of a Tevin Jenkins. I think he can play early. I think that he can solidify that group up front. And so I'm anxious to see how the offensive line responds to the change in quarterback and coming together and being stronger and feeling like they can play as one. We've seen so already, right, in OTAs that they were doing everything together and trying to stay consistent and cohesive. And I think that's going to be huge for this team, especially starting with a couple of new guys behind center.
No question. And you look at the steadiness that the offensive line had down the stretch of last season, really after Thanksgiving, when Sam Mustipher came back healthy and they got some stability there and they moved to Fetty outside to tackle. And all of a sudden you felt like, okay, they felt confident enough in their line to commit to the running game. They committed to the running game. David Montgomery got going. Montgomery got going. The offense started to score points. It's this whole sort of domino effect that starts with having an offensive line that you believe in up front, right? That you have confidence in to do the things you want to do as an offense. Left tackle position, you've got Tevin Jenkins needing to get up to speed faster than Justin Fields needs to get up to speed, right? So this is an important camp for Tevin Jenkins, who has a lot of comfort on the right side, to figure out how to get comfortable quickly on the left side at left tackle. If he can't get comfortable over there, you may have to start the season with sort of a journeyman veteran and figure out your way to ease Tevin Jenkins into things. But to your point, this offensive line needs to be cohesive. I thought Mustipher last year really showed, surprisingly so, I guess, to outsiders, his ability to be a leader, right? And the ability to be one of these guys who, even though he's, sort of an undrafted guy who's had to, climb the ladder in a different way, has great self-confidence and belief in his leadership ability. And so that's a guy up front, to your point, with 2 quarterbacks behind him that he's never snapped the ball to, that's going to be really instrumental to the success of that line.
No, I totally agree with you. And based on the conversations we've had with Tevin Jenkins, I feel like he's ready he's ready for this. Like, I feel like he's ready for this and he's going to prove that very quickly. Hopefully he can understand the pacing as far as like camp. These rookies are going to want to spring into action, and you just have to make sure that they're coming along at the right pace for when the season actually kicks off. But I agree with you on Mustipher. I feel like they have the tools there. Can it all come together as quickly as they need it to? That's what I'm keeping my eye on.
There's no question about it. Number 3 on my list. I'm going a little bit off the path here, a little bit outside the box here. I would like to see a podium at training camp. I would like to stand near someone that I'm interviewing and speak with them in person. I would like to see Matt Nagy within, 6 to 8 feet of me and be able to ask him 2-3 questions in a row. If the opportunity arises, I would like media access in 2021 to start to return back to what it was pre-pandemic. I know you're on this boat and you're tooting the horn up front on the boat going, on, let's go. Let's get on this and ride this through. Let me give you a list of important players on this team. And it's an incomplete list that we've never met in person.
Okay,
Justin Fields, Andy Dalton, Jimmy Graham, Cole Kmet, Tevin Jenkins, Damian Williams, Jermaine Ifedi, Marquise Goodwin, Robert Quinn, Tayshaun Gibson, Jalen Johnson. I could keep going. These are all players that we have never met in person. And if we've never met them in person, it's very likely that we haven't had a conversation with them at any point to let them know who we are, to learn more about who they are. I think folks on the outside need to understand that access that we talk about, sometimes complain about. I know you're a big complainer like me. It is so important for us to be able to peel back the curtain on what they want to learn about their favorite team. And I just really, really have this hope. And maybe it's naive of me to have this hope that we're going to get back to actually talking with and learning more about the people we cover in a way that makes everybody know more about the team they want to know about.
Okay, let me give you some more hope. One of the blessings of my job, right? I get to cover a lot of different things. Went to the All-Star game. We stood like right in front of Chris Bryant and Craig Kimbrell and Lance Lynn and Carlos Rodon and interviewed them like old times, like the way it's supposed to be. It can be done. There was no outbreak. It was so life-giving, Dan. I felt like I was soaring. I mean, this is why we do our job, is to be able to bring the fan closer. That's the whole point. And that's what we want to dig for, is to give them stuff they're not getting just via social media or a Zoom that they put out on Twitter. I want access. I want to get to know these guys, because I feel like I'm way into the psychology of sports. And I feel like you know that once you're interacting in person, you get to see that. And so you can almost predict how this person, based on their personality, will respond on the field. We haven't had that. I mean, listen to that list. I'd forgotten we've never seen Jimmy Graham in person. That's insane to me. And Jalen Johnson, and how many times we talked to these guys, and yet we haven't interacted with them. And
no conversation.
Never had a conversation. But you go back to the guys that we have had that conversation with. We know what to expect from Akeem Hicks. We know what to expect from Eddie Jackson, Allen Robinson, because we've had those moments. And so I think I'm with you. I am rowing the boat towards a podium at training camp. Please, even if it's outside, I would handle that. I don't want to sit in my car anymore. It's a floor to sleep. I'm done. I don't even want to sit in. It's not fun. That's not a fun office.
Not only is it not fun, but how about sitting in your car and you're relying on a cell signal to make sure your Zoom goes smoothly, and you're in the middle of a question, and then your question starts going like this, and then it slows down and speeds up, and then they say, "Okay, Dan, we're going to come back to you. Okay, Dan, we're going to come back to you," and you're just like,
No, you only get one question. It makes you want to pull your hair out. It's unbelievable, and I want to be able to follow up. Like nothing makes me madder than when the host has muted you. Like nothing. I'm just like, stop it. Let me finish my thought.
And it's not even following up on your own questions. It's following up on others' questions that may not have been completely answered, right? And you want to just say, hold on a second. You didn't completely answer Potsy's question, although Potsy does a really good job of making sure that his questions get answered. But listen, I told anyone in my life who wanted to know that last year as a reporter was as uncomfortable a year as you'll ever experience. Because so much of our job is about conversation, observation, and relationships, right? And all 3 of those things were either squelched completely or reduced to such limited volume that you just felt like a fish out of water at all times. You just felt like you were trapped in a cage and going, let me out of here. This office. I've spent far too much time in this home office on Zoom calls, writing stories. I want to listen to this. I want to go back inside Hal's Hall at some point. And
I do too.
And I would like to walk over to the table on the far end under that marker board in the media room and see some baked goods that you brought. Dionne, these are awesome.
I can't wait to bake.
Stop by Jeff Dickerson's desk or Mark Potash's desk or Pat Finley's desk and just be goofy, right? And give them crap and have them give me crap and just be back in the environment that we so miss. I've told people This is a crazy little nugget for those of us who follow us closely. Rich Campbell has been inside the media room at Hallis Hall more recently than I have. He left about 2 hours later than I did at that press conference after 2019. And so he's been there more recently than I have. I don't even know if his desk, we sat side by side for 7 years, right? Like, is his desk still there? I don't know. We'll find out.
These are all things we'll find out. I'm going to make a prediction that we are back inside Hallis Hall for this season. I'm gonna speak it into reality. How about that? I'm good at that.
As we were recording this, a little ding on my phone, and I think there might have been a ding on your side. There was an email that came through from the Chicago Bears that is apparently going to have training camp procedures and protocols there. So we can wrap up this video and then dig into that and go, what do we got here? It's like
this is surprise. Very exciting. Be exciting. All right. Well, then I'm just going to say, let's wrap this up so we can get another one. But before you go, like, subscribe, tell your friends. We appreciate it.
You got it. And training camp is just around the corner.